I remember when I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, my first child, who is now 27. And I remember at that time I was 20 and I was at my dad's house. I was in nursing school and I was at his house that day. And I remember going to his house, and that night we got into this argument and he kicks me out the house at 11 o'clock at night. And I remember getting all my belongings, including my huge nursing books for school. And I was walking to the corner to call my mom. There were payphones back then. I remember I just started crying and I was like in this realization of, I'm about to have to take care of this person. How am I gonna do this? I have no clue what I'm doing. And I remember it was that very moment that I started envisioning my daughter and who she would be and what life would be like for her. And I remember after giving birth to her, these visions just really took full-fledged in my life, constantly thinking about her a few years later in life or at the age of 5, at the age of 7. And it really did help me to be able to pave an experience and create what I was envisioning for her. But I also remember in those moments, a lot of my visions for her also came from my own personal fears. So what I want to talk to you about today is trauma parenting when we're living vicariously through our children. My name is Crystal Turner. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner who's going holistic because I know to be whole is to be healed. And I want you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned. So I'm going to use my children as examples a lot in this video because it fits. It's definitely been a big part of my experience and how I am sharing this with you because it's not something I'm just speaking. It has been my experience that I have lived vicariously or attempted to do that through my children in their younger years. And I've had to acknowledge that for myself and shift how I was doing things for their happiness. And it's fitting today because if you look in my space, it's a little weird. There's a lot of pictures hanging around because my son he has graduated high school. He's about to go on to college and we're having a trunk party for him today. So these pictures are a lot of pictures of him throughout the years that are hanging. But it's fitting because there was a time with my son as well that I really tried to live through him as well. But from a different angle. So let's talk about it. So I want to really talk about some ways that when we're living vicariously through our children because of our own trauma, how that looks and how can we shift and really think about how to change that way of being that we're having with our children, these experiences that we're having that we can't change once they've happened. So the first thing is, for me, when it came to my children, I was living in a way where I wanted to make sure that they did not experience the same painful experiences that I had. And there can be healthy parts of that, but then this can also get murky and it can get messy and it can start to lift the boundaries that really spill into not being beneficial to our children and being all about our own experiences. So when I think about not wanting my children to experience my pain. So I grew up in a home that did have domestic abuse. And so in that sense, alcohol was a big part of my home growing up. And even though I've had alcohol in the past in homes that I've had, there became a point where I didn't want any alcohol in my house. So those are things that I stopped having in the house. I stopped, if I went out to drink, I stopped doing that in front of my children. That was my choice. And I thought that those were healthy types of ways to make sure my children don't have the painful experiences that I've had. But that boundary gets crossed also when we start thinking that their experiences are going to be like ours. So then we start to behave and change their environment based on the fears and the experiences that we had in our youth or in our childhood or in our past. And that can start looking really weird. That can start looking like, if my son wants to go out and play, if I've been in an environment where it was very difficult or very violent in an environment, then maybe the kids aren't allowed to go out at all. Children do need a social experience. So we have to allow them to have that. We have to look and judge honestly our environment to say, is there the same type of violence in this community that my children are in now as opposed to the one I may have been raised in? So if it isn't and you've assessed that, then we want to remember that there's a part of a child in their development where they do need social interaction. They can't just be around you as a parent. They have to also have their own experiences. So also when we're at this point of making sure that they don't experience what our fears are, this can start to look in such a way that we become overprotective of our children. I know my mom used to tell me about how when she was being raised, there was a point in time where she was living with some family, some cousins, and they took my mom in for maybe it was the summer, and there was another cousin who they took in as well. And this cousin looked a certain way that they didn't see as attractive, and they really did mistreat this young lady. They actually locked her in the basement, would throw food down to her as if she was like an animal. And that really stuck with my mom to see someone be mistreated like that. And from that, my mom was very overprotective. Like, it was very rare that we were going to spend a night at anyone's home, you know, and what she would do was allow people to come to our space, to our home. So we would always have people at our house, but she wasn't playing that game of having us go to these other people's home based on the experience she had. And I'm not here to, I appreciate my mom attempting to protect me, but we also have to be aware that we can over shelter our children, and at some point they are going to have their experiences in life. And we want to be able to prepare them to know how to deal with experiences, and social interaction is one of those important factors. So we oftentimes can envision worst case scenarios for our children when we've come from environments where we've seen the worst, or we've been treated the worst, or we've had really hard experiences. As I mentioned, with my daughter, I used to envision her very easily in happiness and joy and playful types of experiences. When my son came along, because you hear a lot in society about young Black boys and the dangers that young Black boys can experience, and I'm not taking away from that. I know that that's a real thing. There are these experiences that Black boys have. But I also remember, because of that, the way I envisioned for my son was so much more fear. I would imagine myself envisioning, you know, harmful things happening to him and really being crippled from that in terms of how much I held on to him and how overprotective I became of him. And I noticed a very distinct difference from how when I envisioned my daughter in this very playful, fun, open way in life, and how I was envisioning my son from this fearful, harmful possibilities that he may experience in life, how it really felt different, how it impacted how I parented. So there's balance in these things. We know that there are things in the world, and we, as responsible parents, we do want to, you know, make sure we're protecting our children, but one way that we're also protecting them in the long run is to allow them to have experiences. Allow them to have experiences in life, because they're the things, especially when you're still raising them under your roof, when things happen, it's the opportunity to have conversation, it's the opportunity to like debrief what happened, you know what I mean? And I don't think that children forget that. When we're able to have conversations after an experience, things stick more. So we have to allow our children to have experiences. And so one of the things I would really encourage is to be able to start making it a habit or a part of your day where your vision of your children is something from love, something from the ideal experiences that you would want them to have, the laughter that they would have, their personal joy, what you know they love, and them being embodied in that. You know, really having those experiences in our mind so that it guides us in our heart and how we're parenting them and how we're allowing them to have experiences while we're raising them. Also, when we're coming from a place of not dealing with our own hardship, our own painful experiences, our own emotional trauma, we can really try and live vicariously through our children in this way. So for many people who've dealt with emotional trauma, one of the big common themes that a person can have is that they're not good enough to do something, that they're not capable, they're not good enough, or they're not going to be desired in whatever it is, or accepted in whatever it is that you would like to have deep in your heart. And so because of that, many of us may have never even pursued the things that we really would have wanted to pursue in our life, because maybe life happened in a way where we felt we didn't have the time, or we had responsibilities that came up, or it's those very things and not feeling that you're good enough to go after those things. And so you settle for things in different ways. And so our children come along and we see this potential in them because we tend to see the good in our children and the potential. You know, when I talk to my children and I always speak life to them, they always say, you're saying that because you're my mom. But as a mom, I see the essence of who it is that they are. Everyone won't see that. But when we are doing that as a parent, we see their essence, we see their strength, and we see all this capability that we never saw in ourselves. Then it's like, this is an opportunity to, them do these things that we wanted to do. And sometimes we don't even do that. Sometimes we do it knowingly, but sometimes it's not even an awareness. We may just think about the most successful careers, for example, that society says are successful careers, and we want our children to go for those things because it makes us feel better, and it makes us feel good that our children are doing the things that give them status. Let's just be honest about that. And the thing of that is, we are living vicariously through ourselves on what we would have valued, what we would have liked to have done that we maybe didn't have the courage to do or didn't have the confidence to do. And so now we're projecting that to our children. But what I would really encourage, and I had to learn this because I remember with my daughter, she, I wanted her to be a speech pathologist because she was good in English or whatever. And so I was always encouraging this. And I remember she wanted to go into writing, to journalism, to mass communications. And I remember she told me that her dad had told her to do what it is that she really want to do. And I'm so glad that there was one of us as a parent who did do that, because she did go into what it was that she really desired, and she's flourished in it. She does really well, and she also has more passion to do the hard work that it might take sometimes to get to where it is that she wants to be. So it's thinking about, how is your child going to feel doing something that's only about what you want, as opposed to what they really love, And so living vicariously through our children can cause them not be happy, but we be proud. Or we could be allowing them to have happiness through what they do. And as parents, I really think if we let go of the fear, that will bring us more joy to know that our children are emotionally happy first, before they are secure in some type of role in society that we don't know when those roles and the status of those roles will change in the first place. And it was very similar with my son. A big thing over the years has been engineering. And so for years we would say, let's do engineering, look into engineering. And I remember when we would talk to him about engineering, he just didn't light up like that. And I remember one time he told me, he said, I don't think I like that. I don't think I like engineering in that way. And I remember listening, thinking about my daughter, because my children are 9 years apart. My daughter's the oldest. I remember my experience with my daughter, and I had to really sit and think, do I want him to just do a job because in society and with status, it is held at this high level? Or do I want him to do something that really follows his passion? And, so we talked about that, and I had to really sit and talk to him about what was his happiness about, what is it that he desired, and then to create a plan based on that. And so what has that done? It's allowed them to be able to go into the next chapters of their life with more excitement, more enthusiasm, because they're doing something that truthfully many of us didn't have the courage to do, which is go for what is more true to us, as opposed to doing something because we saw our parents doing it, or doing something because our parents wanted us to do it. And it's really a level of, I feel, emotional maturity that we should applaud our children for if they're at that point, and we should try to see how we can be supportive on their personal journey. So really the moral is there are ways to allow our children to live and be who it is that they were brought here to be, why they came here to be, support them in that. And this idea of living vicariously, one of the things I used to say when I really didn't think there was much that I was doing well in life, which meant I was dealing with a lot of insecurities, is I would make this statement that my daughter was the first best thing that ever happened to me, or I would say she was the first thing that let me know that I knew how to do something right. Now, while there's an endearing part to that, there's also a part in that that's saying, wow, you didn't feel you could do anything right until you got to this point of raising your daughter. And I think what that really speaks to is if you have a child who's getting to this age and you look at them and you see that they're a good person and you feel good about who you've created, who you've been a part of creating, it should let you know if you're able to instill that in them. If you're dealing with some things that you don't think you have power about within yourself now, you can go back and start working on that in the same way that you nurtured that child. You can nurture your inner child and allow them to now develop and blossom from where you are right now. I think rather than living vicariously through our children, which will cause them to not really be happy, is to start your healing path, because more than anything we say, they see it, and you will be amazed how much that opens them up to having the courage to deal with things within their life, and how much they'll remember that down the road in their life. That, I had a parent who had some struggles, and I saw them make a decision to start changing that, and I saw them change. I saw the impact of that. That's gold right there. That's better than anything we could tell our children, any kind of facade we try to present to society to give accolades to our children is gold. So vicarious living through our children only causes unhappiness for them, a fake facade for ourselves, and keeps us from dealing with our own things, but really allowing them to live and be their support and do your own healing work is going to be transformational within your family, within yourself, and I think even within your children. So that's what I want to share today. I look forward to coming back here next week as I create one video each week related to holistic healing so that we can really experience life and create the life it is that we truly want. That's my words today. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.